Eomer is without a doubt one of my favorite commanders in this game, and the more I use him, the more I really like him. I was hoping to hold off on making a video about him until I had his unique item, but I got a pretty good report today that I wanted to share with you guys, so I figured I could just go ahead and make a video about him. Let's get into it. Alright, I want to start things off by going ahead and talking about this report, since it was a little bit buried by this point in time. It happened earlier today, and I'm recording this video in the evening. It was a relatively even fight overall. I'll admit that I had a 2-level advantage, but in the grand scheme of things, that is not enormous. And I was also down a few troops, but not that many, from a fight right before this Dane hit me. As far as gear goes, I think it's relatively even, perhaps slightly in my favor. I've got one 4-star gold item, the rest is purples. This guy has a 3-star gold item and the rest are purples. And he happened to bring Guards of the Tower, which are effective, obviously, against Eomer running full cavalry. So all in all, I'm really happy with this spread of commander damage, soldier damage, and healing. I have been running Eomer as a hybrid style commander. I think he has about 3 overall builds, and I'll go over each one in this video, but a pretty respectable amount of commander damage. The army also doing a solid amount of damage. We took a whopping 300,000 damage, so even though this Dane isn't nearly as whaled as he could be, he's still cranking out, what was that, 235,000 damage. Dane is an absolute monster, and I really am glad that I got this even fight to show you guys, because I think it shows off Eomer's potential. If he can hold his own against a commander like Dane, who in my opinion is one of the best PvP commanders in the game, then I'm really excited to see what Eomer can do once I get his unique item. As far as the skill builds go, right now, this is the hybrid build that I'm using. It maxes out Rohirrim, picks up Cleave because the skill hits like a truck. I'm taking Eorid Leader for the healing. 1 point in mounted combat. The 1 point in mounted combat is simply to stack Rohirrim more quickly. Sometimes it'll proc in the early rounds, get you an earlier stack of Rohirrim. It also just has a chance of doing extra damage. I mean, I shouldn't say extra damage. The extra damage is only 10%. But it's an extra attack which can bypass things like avoidance/evasion or things like Arwen's R5, those like layered damage reduction type things. I have Marshal of the Mark maxed out, and also Swing. One important thing to note as far as the build goes is you want to put at least 1 point into Marshal of the Mark before you put any points into Cleave. This is so that Marshal of the Mark will go off first and increase Eomer's speed by 100, and then Cleave will go off, and that scales off of speed. If you want to know more about the ordering of skills, I did just release a video on that topic, so feel free to check that one out as well. I went ahead and put a few extra points into R3 and 1 point into flanking. All of these 1 point skills are just so that I have an extra source of attacks to burn through evasion, avoidance, layered damage reductions, things of that nature. Also, if somebody's bringing like 1 command of some units, which people are starting to do, just to take extra hits, because you might hit somebody for 20,000 damage, but if you're hitting only 100 units, you're only going to be doing 100 times whatever their HP is. So you kind of waste, quote unquote, a bunch of damage. So people will bring one command worth of various units just to waste attacks. This kind of helps get around that, especially since these 2 skills are on a low cooldown. Another skill build that I think is perfectly viable is you completely ignore the R5 and you invest all of those points into R3 instead. You give up healing, but you do gain a lot of damage. I've opted for the hybrid build for now because I like having that bit of sustainability on my commander. However, once I get his unique, I will probably opt for the full damage build. I'll experiment with both and see which one I like better. The third build that I think you could use is more of a wannabe Theoden build. I think it's the weakest of Eomer's 3 build options, but basically what you do is you take full Rohirrim tree, you take the full Eored leader tree, and then you can do basically whatever you want with the points that you have left. If you have any left, my Eomer is respect 9. I'm hoping to push him to respect 10 this season. So do keep in mind that if yours is only R5, you might have to cut some points. If you want to use my build, it'd be very easy just to cut the 4 points from Eodig. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. These would be the 4 points that I would cut if your Eomer is only respect 5. And let's talk about the equipment. This will one day be his unique item. I'm just saving it for him for now. He also works very well with a cutlass with flay. I do have one of those. But for right now, I think the gigantic hammer works well, in my opinion. It's giving extra attack to my bow knights. The rend trait on it is well as nice. All things considered, I don't think it's a terrible option. If you can refine the cutlass, and then I think flay would probably be better. However, I'm not in a position to actually refine my flay cutlass, which means I think that I'm better off with the gigantic hammer. For the chest slot, I have the Scout's Mail with Deafness. You could use a Scout's Mail with Shroud. I like having the extra speed, and a lot of people these days are running Pursuit, so I feel like I don't get as much value out of the Shroud Avoidance, whereas the speed scales both Rohirrim and Cleave. We have the Horseman's Helm with Warding. I specifically chose Warding rather than the Madness immunity because on this server we're primarily fighting against other good factions, and because I'm building my Eomer to be a hard counter to Gandalf's and Gil-galad's. Having the stun immunity is very nice in those matchups. Well, it's nice in the Gandalf matchup. It's also useful against the Nazgul commanders in case you ever run into any of those. For the accessory slot, I have a Wizard's Fireworks with Hunter's Mark. This is specifically because I'm building him to counter Gil-galad's. Otherwise, I would recommend a Hithlane with Mend, or if you have a bunch of money that you like to invest in this game, Mieris's Reins is, in my opinion, by far the best accessory for cavalry commanders. If you don't have this, don't worry about it. It's not like it's necessary. If you want the Pursuit, I like the Fireworks, and it also buffs bow knight damage, which is handy as well. If you don't want the Pursuit, just pick up a Hithlane with Mend so that you get some extra might and you get some army HP. As far as troops go, on my Eomer, thankfully he got to my fort during the recording of the video. This is what I've been running. Cataphracts, Rams, Bow Knights. The Bow Knights get to take advantage of the extra attack from the Wizard's Fireworks. The Ram Riders lower defense, and Cataphracts are overall very tanky. If you were going to run a Cutlass instead of his unique item, then I would recommend replacing the Bow Knights with either Cavaliers or Bree Riders. If you're going the full damage build, you might want to run just Cataphracts and Ram Riders, cut the Bow Knights completely, and you'd probably want to run maybe like 800, 900 Rams, 1,000 Rams, and then the rest Cataphracts. If you're going the full damage build, I do think it's more important that you make sure that your army is a bit more tanky than if you're using the hybrid build, or what I will call the wannabe Theoden build. However, I wouldn't really recommend the wannabe Theoden build overall, because it's just Theoden except for worse. Alright guys, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.